Hey everyone, it's Carissa Wiley at sprinkledwithglitter.com. Thanks for joining me today. Today I am sharing 2 cards created with one project kit. I did want to let you know that this video is a part of a video hop happening today celebrating Altenew's brand new October 2025 release. So be sure to check the YouTube description below for not only links for shopping, but all the information you need to know on that video hop. I'm using the brand new Altenew Craft Your Life Illuminated Spaces project kit. I love this kit because it contains 2 scenes, one with a couch and one with a craft room. It also has coordinating stencils, which create kind of an illuminated area of these scenes. And you can also see there's that die set with the coordinating embossing folder. I'm going to be using all of these products in today's project, and they all come in that Craft Your Life kit. Now, the cool thing about Altenew stamp sets is they always come with color ideas, and I decided to start with that craft room scene. I've brought in my Stampwheel 2.0 and loaded some white cardstock in that lower left-hand corner, and I have my craft room scene kind of centered up. I will be trimming this down. This is 5.5 by 8.5 right now. I will be trimming it down to 4.25 by 5.5 inches, but I decided to start with a larger piece of cardstock. I've used the flip plate to pick up my stamp off of that white cardstock, and I flipped it over so that I can ink it up using the Altenew Obsidian Pigment ink. This is a very wonderful, rich black detail pigment ink, and I find it great for stamping images like this. So you can see I flipped my flip plate over and stamped my image. I'm going to re-ink one more time and just stamp in that same position again. The Stampwheel 2.0 allows you to stamp in the same position over and over again. And once I have my image stamped, I am going to remove the cardstock from the Stampwheel 2.0, and I'm going to add some clear embossing powder over the top. Now, this is going to ensure that this pigment ink does not smear when I do my stenciling. If you wanted to do stenciling without the embossing powder, you can definitely do that. You just need to probably heat set it or allow it to really dry like overnight. This is a pigment ink, so it will stay wet for a little bit longer, but it also means you can do some embossing with it as I'm doing here. And I love the look of clear embossing powder over this pigment ink because it gives you that really rich black look, but it also gives you a little tiny bit of dimension and a little bit of shine. So now that my image is ready, I'm going to place it on my 9x12 grid mat from Altenew, and I'm going to start with the stencil set. Now, there are 2 stencils for each of the scenes in this pack, and you're just going to shift those stencils around to create this illuminated area. And since this is a craft room, I decided to choose colors that were close to the colors in my own craft room. And so for the wall color, I'm using this Misty Sage. And you can see I have my Altenew mini ink blending brushes to do a lot of my blending today. I'll also be using the micro blending brushes, which are some of my favorites. Now, I've sped up the ink blending here, and all of the colors that I'm using will be linked in the YouTube description below. I did want to let you know that I did create with the couch or living room image as well, but I'm not showing that in today's video because I do many of the same things in that card. This first card, I'm actually going to end up turning into a shaker card, and that wasn't my original plan, but I think that this card just totally called for it. Now you'll notice that I chose to leave my desk white, but I didn't want to leave it pure white, so I added a little bit of shading with Morning Mist ink and a micro blending brush. I love this purple wine color. It is becoming one of my favorite colors in the Altenew family, and I'll be bringing it into the scene in a couple of small areas. You can see I'm just working my way through all of the stencils. I'm repositioning them, and there is a guide in the pack that shows you where everything kind of lines up, but this was relatively easy to line up with all of the pieces here. Now in my craft room, I have a pink craft chair, and so I am using pink pearl ink and a little bit of Coral Bliss for the shading to make that pink craft chair. And I'll finish up my stenciling with the plants that are on the desk. Now I don't have plants on my desk because they would totally die with a little bit of that green there. And then of course the last little vase there with that purple wine, which is so beautiful. So now that I have all of my stenciling done, you can see how it creates just this illuminated area on the scene. I think this is such a unique idea that Altenew has come up with here, but keep in mind these scenes are great for all alcohol ink coloring or watercoloring as well. Now, once I have my scene ready, I'm going to stamp a couple of options for sentiments. Again, I'm using that obsidian pigment ink here, and I'm stamping onto some white cardstock. I will use the coordinating dies to die cut these sentiments, but in order to prevent any kind of smudging of these sentiments, I decided to go ahead and coat them with the clear embossing powder as well. So I'll just add that embossing powder and heat set that until it melts. Now I'm going to work on a frame for my card, and I'm grabbing the die set from the Illuminated Scenes project kit, and I'm die cutting this from some brushed rose gold cardstock. This is really beautiful. I considered gold, but I thought this rose gold was just so pretty with the scene that I had created. Now you can use these frames as they are, or you can use the coordinating embossing folder. You can see I am positioning the largest frame in that embossing folder, and I'm going to run that through my die cut machine using the 3D embossing folder sandwich recommended for the Platinum 6, which is the A platform along with the D plate at the top. And you can see that that adds some embossed areas to this frame. So you have a couple of ways that you can use these frames. I think the embossing looks absolutely beautiful. And keep in mind, there's embossed areas for the smaller frames as well. So you can nestle those into the embossing folder and use those as you choose. I also die cut the frames from some rouge cardstock, and I'm going to use a smaller frame kind of nestled into this larger frame. And then I went ahead and cut down my scene using an A2 size die. In hindsight, I could have done all of my stamping and stenciling directly onto an A2 size card base, but I hadn't thought that far ahead and I didn't know exactly where I was going. So I'm just going to adhere that panel onto the card base in the end here. Now I've die cut my sentiment, and I also die cut a couple of layers of colored cardstock, and I am going to add some liquid glue to the back and just offset those so that I have a little bit of color on the back side of my sentiment. It brings a little pop of color into the card and also helps these to stand out. I've flipped over my frame, and on the back side, I'm using a double-sided sticky tape from Altenew. This is not foam. And I'm placing that all the way around the back side of this frame. Then I'll remove the backer sheets, and I'm going to add a piece of acetate to the back of this frame. This is going to allow me to make this into a shaker card. Once I have that acetate adhered, then I'll flip this over, and I'm using the 1/4 inch wide and 1/8 inch thick Instant Dimension foam tape from Altenew to place along the back of this frame. You can see it fits perfectly, and it is kind of a double thick foam adhesive that's going to allow plenty of room for my shaker bits to shake around in this frame. I'm making sure that all of the corners of the foam adhesive is kind of sealed in. And then I flip this back over, and I'm adding some liquid glue on the back side of the rouge frame that I created that nestles right inside this larger frame. And I'm going to add that to the acetate. So this rouge frame is adhered to that acetate piece that's on the back side of that rose gold frame. I have my frame ready to go, and now I'm using some tape runner adhesive on the back of this panel here, and I'll adhere it to an A2 size white card base, just simply placed on there. And you can see this looks beautiful as it is, a little sentiment, and it could be a very simple 1-layer card. But I decided to make this a shaker, and so I've grabbed the Dazzling Diamond Sequins from Altenew, and I'm going to use various sizes that are included in the Dazzling Diamond Sequins pack to add shaker bits or shaker elements to this card. I'm using a little ice cream tasting spoon, and you can see I've transferred my sequins from the Altenew packaging into these zipper top pouches for sequins, and I'm moving many of my embellishments in my stash to these zipper top plastic pouches because I find that they're much easier to store, and I'll make sure that I link those in the YouTube description below. Now that I have my shaker bits there, I flatten them out And then I removed the backer from the foam adhesive and placed my frame directly onto my card front. And you can see I have an adorable craft room shaker scene there. I had a few sequins stuck, so I'm just shaking that around until they move, and I got them to move. It all turned out just fine. I have a couple more steps on this card. I'm going to take that sentiment that I stacked up and I'm adding it onto my card front using some 1/16 inch thick foam tape. So I'm just placing that there kind of towards that upper third right area of the card. So you can see that's adhered there. And then I used an old craft punch that I had in my stash. I punched out a piece of Coral Bliss cardstock, placed that heart onto my card front, and then covered it in glossy accents to give it a little bit of shine. And that is going to finish off my first card using this Craft Your Life Illuminated Spaces card kit. Now, I didn't show the creation of the second card because I used all the same colors. I did the same process. But instead of making that a shaker card, I just placed a simple frame around it, and you can see that card there on the right-hand side of this photo. So there you have it. 2 cards, 1 project kit from Altenew. This is a part of the brand new Altenew October 2025 release, which is available now over on the Altenew site. There's some great products included in this release, and I'll be using more of those here on my YouTube channel throughout the month. So be sure that if you haven't already, that you subscribe and turn on the notifications here so you don't miss any of my paper crafting, card making, and live stream video tutorials. There are links in the YouTube description below for the products included in these projects. As always, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I want to thank you so much for spending your time here. If you enjoyed these projects and you enjoyed this video, go ahead and click that thumbs up button and let me know in the comments below which of these 2 cards is your favorite. Thanks again for watching. I'm so glad you're here, and until next time, I hope you have a fabulous day.